where we explore cinema at its strangest, boldest, and most unforgettable. This month, we're deep into the wild frontier of weird westerns. Films that take the spirit of the West and twist it into something eerie, surreal, and completely unexpected. And this week, we're headed into the desert for a 1992 cult classic, Dust Devil. Directed by Richard Stanley, Dust Devil isn't your traditional Western. It's a haunting blend of road movie, horror, and myth. Set against the vast, desolate landscapes of southern Africa, it follows a mysterious drifter who may be something far more sinister than human, leaving a trail of death and supernatural dread in his wake. With its hypnotic atmosphere, striking imagery, and slow burn storytelling, Dust Devil feels less like a straightforward narrative and more like a dark folk tale carried on the wind. It's a western filtered through horror and mysticism, where the frontier isn't just lawless, it's otherworldly. Almost pulled that off. We'll be talking about the film's unique tone, its place within the weird western subgenre, and why it remains such a fascinating cult favorite over the years. So keep your eyes on the horizon, listen to the wind, and be careful who you meet out there. This is the First Last Podcast, and Weird Westerns continues with Dust Devil. That was a good one. That wasn't too bad. It was my performance is always a suspect here. All right, let me snap my guide here, and then we'll get to the plugin. And oh my God, it is totally. Oh, sorry. Oh, there we go. All right, cool. Sorry. All right, good grief. Mike is having a Monday. That is for sure.
Someone has the case of the Mondays.
Yeah, someone has a case of the Mondays.
And it's live, not
Right.
memories.
Yeah, maybe. No, okay, there we go. All right, there we go. So, who are we? This is a wonderful thing. Too bad I didn't have that up before when I was doing the intro. Anyway, we are the First Last Nerdum. The website is on the fritz. I'm not quite sure what happened, but I guess you got to pay the bill or something, or occasionally touch it.
It's the hackers.
Fix it. Yeah, and I just joke. It's just a static site that's on whatever. Nobody cares. But
Mr. Robot's attacking.
yeah. We got this is where you'll find our latest and greatest, where Tom and I do our thing here, where we have our three main shows that we like to do. This one, First Last Pod, main show, usually at around a theme month or movie genre, something like that. And then we also have our binge worthy, which is our delve into should you watch it or should you not. And then finally, our flipping the pages, which you'll see a lot more of because we have we actually have some reserve, some slack that we've been able to build up and release in a better orderly thing. But I'm going to throw it back to Tom because he's got some news on Reddit.
Yeah, First Last Nerdum. I'm there. Promoting us on various subreddits that will not ban us or delete our post. Yeah, I find that with the binge worthy, we do find some passionate fans for that particular. If I find a subreddit for that particular show, it's very passionate, even if they're not always complimentary to us. Hey, we appreciate you giving us a try. And but yeah, so you'll see me promoting stuff there, and if you're coming over from there, hello. I'm also on X. I try to promote our stuff on or soon after it's been premiered. Sometimes Michael sneaks something up on me, and I don't get quite exactly on the ball. But hey, I try. But yeah, and I'm there under First Last Nerdum as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I too am also on the X at Soviet King Jewish _ a man astride a donkey turned the wrong way. You might not like my opinion. That's okay. I might like your opinion. That's also okay. But for this month, we have, and of course I didn't. Why would I have Dust Devil all set to go? Why would I have that? Okay, there we go. Yeah, so this one, so I did, so before we get into too much, this show that we're going to get into is going to be lore heavy, and it's going to have a lot of cool things because this is your non-typical standard studio release. um I can't wait to get into the particulars of it. My understanding is, and I got the director's cut, so I won't vary the lead,
Mm-hmm.
but my understanding is there are four cuts of this film. The only one that matters, though, is the one that years later something happened, something, and we'll get into what something was, and then years later, Richard had the opportunity to go to find this and then actually, re-edit, redirect it. I'm really glossing over the story, but I'll stop there and pause and say, Tom, last week we had a very classic Western, with horror in there, very well done with Kurt Russell, expertly done by the cast, the dialogue. We had a great writer. This week we find ourselves in Africa with Richard Stanley. What made you want to pick this one? What where is this one on the list, or I guess that would be my biggest. I'm so curious because
Yeah.
we kind of talk about a little bit of why we pick what we pick, and sometimes it's patently obvious because we know each other, and sometimes you just don't know. So that's the fun thing. So
Yeah, yeah. This one, it was. We've been doing theme months, and I wanted to cover this, but I didn't know when to unleash it. When would be the best time? Because it's sort of a supernatural killer. So if we did a Psychos month, I don't know if I could wedge it in. So it was like trying to find a way to work it into one of our months, and the when I was doing, I was kind of trying to test the waters to see how far weird westerns would go, and we had a little discussion about Chat GPT and different
mhm.
AI things, and I was asking, when you do a search now in any type of browser, AI is going to be the first thing you see now, no matter
It just
what,
is. Yep.
unless you go in and forcefully try to turn it off. But I ask, I
Absolutely.
ask it, I ask a couple of different AI sources, hey, let's me some weird westerns, and Dust Devil kept popping up, and I was like, it wasn't one that I immediately thought of as a western. And then when I was watching it again, I was like, okay, wait for the western. It kind of comes in towards the end. But yeah, it's one of those genre bending movies where it's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of that. But it kind of rises above. It's much more. I got more of a mysticism kind of atmosphere for it this time around. Um, and just to give you a little backstory, it came out in 1992. It had a lot of different backers. One of them being the Weinstein brothers, with I think Dimension or Miramax, and Richard Stanley has very very little good thing. Well, there's no good things he says about Harvey in his commentary, but yeah, evidently it got kind of butchered and barely released. I don't even think I heard about it. I was a big fan of Hardware. That came out before this, his first big movie, and Dust Devil I didn't really hear about until the 2000s when you kind of hinted at it when he was able to do his director's cut.
Right.
I got this DVD, and this is a beautiful limited edition DVD that came out, and I was like, if I ever
Here, let me put you on the
upgrade,
big
yeah,
screen. Yeah, that would do it
yeah,
justice.
yeah. If I ever got like, I was like, if it came out in like Blu-ray or 4K, it couldn't be in such a nice little package because you got the movie, you got the director's cut, you got the work print, you got three of his documentaries. You have the soundtrack as well, and there's little booklets in here. There you got. Let me pull these out. You got a little comic book even. You got a little thing on the documentaries, and you actually got a production diary that Richard Stanley held. So I was always really happy with this. I was like, man, I don't want to get. And I gave you a couple of the links. I heard Kino Lorber was doing the 4K of it, and I was very happy about that. But I was like, man, I don't know if they'll have all the accoutrement and all the extras that came with this. But the 4K on Kino is kind of basic. But then I heard Umbrella coming out with their huge box set, and
Oh, shame on me.
yeah,
I'm not.
and Umbrella was like, "Hold my beer." I think I would think we could do a little bit better on that limited edition. But yeah, that's the it's a basic 4K. I'm sure
Right.
it's got a great um, it's probably the same 4K transfer because a lot of the it has a lot of the same like the new audio commentary from
Right.
Richard Stanley and whatnot, and so that and they got all the like extra stuff from the the 2006 release. Yeah, the DVD came out in 2006. But yeah, if you wanted to, and for most people, this is going to be the good one to get because it's got the director's commentary. But if you wanted to overload, Umbrella came out with this beautiful box set. It doesn't have all three of the documentaries that the DVD has, but one of the documentaries they put on hardware, which makes a little bit more sense because it was done at the same time or relatively at the same time. And this one, it comes with obviously the 4K,
And
but
this is the one
also
on screen that you're showing, right? That you're
yeah,
talking about,
yeah,
right? Okay. I
exactly.
just want to make sure I'm
Yeah,
synced up here. Not like
yeah,
an
yeah,
idiot
yeah.
presenter here.
Yeah, and a very nice hardback book with a lot of
Very cool.
pictures
Yeah,
and behind the scenes stuff and articles
that is
and
neat.
whatnot. The really cool thing is this paperback book, which has the script. It also has a lot of the storyboards that Richard did for the making of the movie, and also it has the you
Here,
got
yeah.
the
Let me hide my.
yeah, it's got the storyboards and all of this, and it also has the production diary, the whole production diary, which I think there's only a sampling of his entries in the DVD. So it just was everything's much
That
is
is
here,
awesome.
but even bigger and better. And you got a couple of posters, and the thing that always kind of I'm always here there with you got the art cards or the postcards or whatnot. It's like okay, whatever. But but yeah, you have your two documentaries. You got the theatrical version of Dust Devils. You have the director's cut. You have the work print, and on this one, on this big box set, you also get his latest movie, Color Out of Space, which stars Nicolas Cage as a bonus disc, along with a documentary on the troubled making of. Island of Dr. Moreau, which he famously got fired from. So so if you get the box set for Hardware and Dust Devils, you pretty much have all of his stuff up to date as far as the movies he's directed. So
Yeah,
that's a
hardware was
really cool
great.
thing. Yeah, which we talked about a year or so ago.
Yep.
So check that one out. I'm sure you'll probably put in the links or whatnot.
Yeah, I'll
But
make sure I link it
yeah.
up here. Matt, speaking of that, I need to get on the ball and fix our because we're live. I need to fix our thumbnail and show notes and all. But while we do that, yeah. So this one is obviously a cult classic, and this is just like this is probably the most perfect example of what we try to find and talk about on here, and they come up like you were saying, whether it's AI or whatever. That's the cool thing about. I'm really fascinated because I want to see. It would just be cool to see like more intricate, complicated, setups for these kind of different ways that we fans match things up. Where it's here or there. Reddit certainly has its own things, but it's also kind of like a club thing too. So people like to. We're just in an era where people like to be in a club, and that nothing wrong with that. Yeah, but not so much a community, but a clubhouse. But that's okay. But this is one of those that if you feel like you're in the club though when you watch it, it takes its time. Well, actually, I'll stop there and see where you want to go with the thing. You want to avoid the 87-minute theatrical Miramax one. Just butchered, absolutely horrible. And I think the European cut is okay, but really, we just cover like the original, and you get the storyboards and all that. I mean, that's and you could dial it in too if you don't want all that. Then you just get the Kino Warbler one. No big deal. But
Yeah,
Wanna?
absolutely. Yeah, there's different ways to view it. Yeah, I'm the physical media guy, so that's what I'm all about. But I believe you could rent it on Prime, and I think Apple has it too, don't they? Or
Yeah, I
does
have it here.
or
I have it in my show
Amazon?
notes where
Yeah,
it's at. Let me just. I'll look that up while you
yeah.
do the
So
thing.
yeah, the nickel and dime description of it is a woman on run from her abusive husband encounters a mysterious hitchhiker. Although I mean, it's a woman on the run, but you really don't get a sense of what's been going on. She has her faults as well as the movie plays out. The movie doesn't give you a whole lot.
Right.
I when I first watched it back in the 2000s, 2006 specifically, I enjoyed it. I remember liking it, but I don't know if I really got a grip on the movie as I did this time around. It's kind of a interesting mix. I got a real sense of Clive Barker. He has a kind of a way of making movies. He's a writer as well, and there was a little bit of that in there. The whole mysticism, the thing about there's some horrific elements and some maybe a devil in it, but it's less of this is completely evil as opposed to there's an attraction there for the evil. There's a reason why people are attracted to evil, and that's kind of comes across. There's almost a sensual aspect of it, which is kind of somewhat like Clive Barker. But there's a real dream element to this movie too. There's a lot of times where you don't know if the person's dreaming or not, and I got a real sense of maybe that era of David Lynch as well. There's an interesting because there's a little bit of shades of that, but it's clearly Richard Stanley's vision of what's going on. So it's distinctly his view of things. But I keep pulling little things out, and he he is quoted as saying that he doesn't really see this as a horror movie and much more of his love of giallos and spaghetti westerns. He grew up in South Africa. That's where he was born,
Right.
and he said that spaghetti westerns were oddly enough very popular there whenever he was younger, and that's sort of what he kind of grew up on was those movies, Sergio Leone specifically, spaghetti westerns. So it does have a lot of interesting. And a lot of times when you have various inspirations, they kind of tug at each other, and until one of them kind of wins out. Whereas this one's kind of an interesting synthesis of all those different influences. There's not one that sticks out prominently, and there's not one that a lot of times there's like a there's almost a fight in it where it wants to be one or the other, and they don't always rest easy together with the other aspects of the movie. Whereas this one, it all seems clearly connected to each other, and there's not like there's not like a disconnect with the themes or the inspirations.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That this one is it takes its time, and I do not want to. I don't want to watch the motion video. It's distracting. Yeah, you're right. This is. I could see where if this version would have been released, it would have been it potentially could have been a different world that we live in. It does seem this. I wouldn't. I'm glad I only watched the director's cut version, the his intended version. And
Hmm.
I am glad I did see that because I didn't see like a truncated, really crappy version. Because this is because if you saw the shorter cut down version, the wrong version, you would not get the sense like Clive Barker also was also. Would you not say that he was also ahead of his time for some
Hmm.
of the concepts and the way he was pushing the genre, and
Right.
getting the best out of the actors and actresses around him.
Hmm.
Um, I got that from this as well. Like that, maybe not
Yeah.
quite as elegant and precise as the way you put it, but I definitely got that it was, for 92. This is in Africa. This is like this is skating in a whole different world of like where are we going, and
Hmm.
where the landscape again. I love this, and I'm a sucker for this in films where the landscape itself is a character. or part of the thing. Absolutely. I mean, without it, you wouldn't have the Western vibe. I mean, obviously, it has a different kind of tone too, but you do get that dusty Western kind of feel of like, something's going on,
Yeah.
and we're not quite sure what's going on or what's what. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you kind of run into these characters, um, and that are kind of incidental, I guess, to this. There's a couple things that happen before the main character, like where you get to understand in a sense of this uh, uh, hitchhiker,
Yeah, that
and
Hitcher
what.
motif. Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't hide it. They don't hide it very long. You know something's up when you go through the movie because
hmm
they don't waste too much time. I will say, probably the only criticism I have it was probably a very slow middle for me, but that's about it. And it didn't take away too much, but you could tell that like something had happened. I guess like maybe with the timing because you can't even though he had a second whack at it, you can't fix everything, right? So,
Right.
but aside from that, you had some predecessors too. I don't know if you wanted to cover that or if you or films that were at that we covered, which was it definitely has folk horror too, which we also have covered
hmm
at length. With it,
Yeah.
I kind of got a little bit of a feeling of a few different ones. Like I definitely got a little bit of a Bone Tomahawk, kind of more of a like unrefined, I guess, unpolished.
hmm
Um,
So maybe a more of a punk, a punk aesthetic. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
maybe. Yeah, I mean, I definitely got aspects of the folk horror because of the the monster here that
yeah.
is this is all based on. But Midsummer, like I got vibes of that. I got vibes of really. This is a good thing. Like when you get kind of like you get reminded of other films that are good, and not because it's copying it outright or it's
Mhm.
actually effective in what it does. Anyway, I'll pipe down and let you respond.
Yeah. Uh, there's there's almost like with David Lynch. There's like David Lynch is very good at like grabbing things out of the ether, where the collective consciousness is maybe thinking about it, and so it kind of taps into those things that we immediately have a connection to and have thought about. But maybe not on a conscious level, more of a subconscious level. And Richard Stanley is really good at kind of digging at those things. And basically, well, yeah, and he's from South Africa. He lived there for his first 16 years. He got out of there to not be get into the military. I think there's like forced conscription there, where you would he would have had to gone into the military. So he snuck his way out of South Africa, and for the longest time, people would ask him, especially during the late 80s and 90s with apartheid and everything. That was a kind of a hot topic. So, and then since he's from there, people kept asking him his thoughts on Africa and whether or not he would ever go back to it. And this is sort of like his kind of summation of his feelings towards South Africa. And he said that he was a pessimistic youth, so it kind of has a very much of a kind of a dark element to it. And there's also especially when he was young, he kept having these reoccurring nightmares about this hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker was the arbinger of the death and destruction, and he would show him things of fire and places on fire and the future of fire and whatnot, and
Right.
this kind of a hell, and this motif of the hitchhikers kind of comes back over and over. There's similar characters in Stephen King's work, especially with The Stand and The Walking Dude or The Walking Man, and the Dark Tower, and you have all these various elements. Around that time, the Hitcher came out with you know. Rucker Hauer, and Richard Stanley was kind of upset that came out first, and
Mm.
that he wanted to get his vision out there.
In
Um,
'86, you're talking about the film that
yeah,
hits. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of emotion built up into this. He said that there's at one point a letter that's found that the woman has written to her husband, and that's actually sort of his thoughts and feelings towards South Africa. Is that letter? You could take that as his feeling. If he wrote a letter to South Africa, that would be his letter to it. But yeah, and also you touched on that. There's a lot of different elements that maybe didn't go to fruition. There's a lot of action elements that didn't get filmed because they didn't have money. Halfway through the shoot, a lot of the money dropped out of it, and things started
Oh
disappearing
yeah,
off
that's
of
right.
set. Different props and whatnot would disappear and then reappear. So there's a lot of action elements that didn't get filmed. There's a later in the movie, one of the characters, Sergeant Ben, he's like shooting his shotgun out into, it's almost
Yeah,
like he's crazy. He's just shooting his shotgun wild because they weren't able to film the other element of the demon, the devil that he's shooting at. So, and he goes, a lot of that, the movie kind of has more of an art house vibe to it because he had to do something a little bit different. He
right.
couldn't
To
do the
show the
action
detail.
thing. Yeah, he couldn't do the action, so he did a lot of the dreamlike quality flashes that he does, which gives it a whole different vibe to it. It could have been just a pointless, another '90s horror movie but this one has. Feels like it has a little bit more substance to it, and it's not spelled out. It's more of a kind of a, like I said, it has that dreamlike quality where various characters learn things through dreams, and it instructs them in real life what to do,
Right.
and and uh, and there's that I keep going back to it, but that hitchhiker vibe, in every culture, there's that thing about those uh, legends or tales of hitchhikers where you pick one up and he disappears through the while he's riding with you, and he wanted to include that in this movie where the hitchhiker just disappears.
Mm.
And
He does
it kind
that.
of, yeah, gives you that dreamlike quality, and there's that supernatural element where Robert John Burke, who plays Hitch or the Dust Devil, he is the devil. There's no question that there's something evil and supernatural about him, but you really don't, and you kind of understand where he's going at. People on the edge. He's kind of like tips them over, and he
Yeah,
feeds off of them.
you like unlike the and I haven't seen it, so I'm just reading the log line from the Hitchers in '86 or the Hitcher. That is it's more of a adventure or a chase, I guess.
Hmm.
Like whereas I think this Dust Devil, yeah, it's kind of like that, but it's not because it's more you have the characters that are you're centering on him,
Hmm.
and the characters are incidental to converging on him, and it's very interesting how it gets there, and the different kind of, it's in a way it like it is ahead of its time, like in that that famous movie, god, it was like Crash or something like that. I can't anyway, it had kind of different narratives and story, completely different concept. But
Hmm.
you get there for, instead of it being the adventure, and you pick up and there's action and kind of a standard horror esque chase that I get from the Hitchers. This one is not like that at all. Like, I mean, it has some adventure to it and some excitement and some pep. I'm not saying it doesn't, it does, but it also stops, and it stops a few times to remind you you don't quite know what's going on or what you're
Hmm.
seeing or who is what, and that is made for on purpose, that
Hmm.
deliberate kind of keeping you off a beat, on purpose, plays well. Like
Yeah.
when it nails it very well. When it doesn't, it does drag down, and the pacing kind of suffers a little bit, like
Hmm.
to me a little, but not to I'm kind of being a little bit more hypercritical here, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I Yeah, I think it's not a perfect movie. There's some of the acting is excellent, some of it's weak. There's in I think there's a point in interview with the cinematographer, and he said that Stanley was much more concerned about the look of the scene as opposed to the actors. The visually the movie looks beautiful, and everything looks and makes sense visually, but the acting isn't always spot on. But it doesn't need to be. It's not that type of movie, you know.
Right.
It kind of gets past all of that. And also, you wouldn't think it, but there's a lot of things that are grounded. There was a serial killer in South Africa that was called, I think, the Devil. That was never caught. The police dragged this headless body, saying that it was the serial killer, and they buried it with the name of the devil, I think, on this tombstone. But was that truly the serial killer? And there was kind of a question on that. So, and there's the place that keeps popping up in this movie, Bethany, and that's a real city, real town. And you're thinking Western, but they are kind of going from the city into this new frontier, this frontier that obviously isn't the old West, but is definitely a frontier. And there's this mysticism, and us being from America, we're not familiar with the black magic, the mysticism of South Africa. So
Right.
there's a sense of unknown about it, but there's also that sense of authenticity. It's not like it's made up stuff. It's got this spiritual mysticism to it, that's grounded in reality, or
Right.
with real traditions. But there's like that feeling of the unknown, and there's like that danger to it. Um,
It takes it
Also,
very seriously.
seriously, yeah.
When you see the Namibian landscape, just the vast desert,
Hmm.
that kind of serves you a little bit of a cosmic shudder. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. There's the little humans walking upon this vast landscape, and like I said, it was filmed in Namibia, in the place of South Africa. They couldn't actually film it there in South Africa, but yeah, it really has, like you said earlier on, it's a character in and of itself, and the characters, even though you're kind of invested with Chelsea Field's character. She's not the greatest person either. There's that scene where you got the still of where her car gets stuck, and
Right.
she runs into this this guy
Trying to help her.
that
Yeah.
yeah, that's trying to help her, and she gets her unstuck, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because he's black or what. She just
I
kind of takes off without
I
maybe giving him
yeah.
a lift or
I
helping him
didn't.
along.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was just extra seasoning, or if it was to play with the tones that are uniquely African. Yeah, I don't know, but
Right.
anyway, it does paint her character in an you know
Less than kind way,
right,
because
right,
a minute or two later she's picking up the white man drifter, so
right.
with sight unseen, and he wanted the devil, played by Robert Burke. He wanted
Burke's
him to
eyes,
be,
yeah,
he wanted him to be an attractive devil. The devil would naturally want to be beautiful, and he wanted a look, look like Elvis Presley or James Dean, or the guy from the Doors. Have this sort of. He wanted Riders in the Storm and part of the soundtrack, but it was too much. They didn't have the money for it afterwards, so he said he would kill for a little bit of that in there. But instead, with this movie, since they got Robert Burke, they went for a Clint Eastwood spaghetti western, man with no name kind of look, and he does have that the piercing eyes that he has, and that look of a Clint Eastwood, and it really works quite well with this movie. I don't know if he went for a more. At one point, he almost got Nicolas Cage in this movie, and maybe that would
Oh
have been
man.
more of an Elvis vibe to it. But he did work with Nicolas Cage much later with his movie Color Out of Space, which is an adaptation of a H.P. Lovecraft story, but which we hopefully
We
we'll
will
talk about in the
absolutely.
future.
Yeah, we love Nick Cage, and we love cosmic horror, and we love Lovecraftian marvels of horrific imagination. Uh,
But yeah, so yeah, the Robert Burke, he does, he's kind of a presence in this movie, which he has to be to embody this devil, and there's a lot of interplay with him looking in the mirror, and
Notice that. Yeah.
yeah, and and when he was filming this, Richard Stanley didn't know what it was going on, but at the same time, Twin Peaks was getting made, and when he finally was able to watch Twin Peaks, and David Lynch did a lot with the serial killer and a mirror, and he said it must have been just kind of in the zeitgeist at that time with that whole thing, but yeah, there is that aspect of this. So if you're a fan of Twin Peaks, you'll get that kind of David Lynchian vibe within this movie. But yeah, there's Hardware's a pretty straightforward kind of action sci-fi story, and this is
It is.
more of a dreamy, mystic dream slash nightmare. There's the guy that's trying to track down the police force guy, Sergeant Ben Makubra. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. Played by Zykes Make,
Yeah.
who is South African. Normally he wouldn't play the police officer. He's more of a upstart character usually, but he wanted him to be that force of South Africa in this movie, and he's he's tasked with trying to hunt down a devil, which yeah. If you're trying to track down the devil, you go the mystic route, and there's no question about it. There's a scene where he goes to the the to do they have the
Questioning of
bodies
the
there, yeah, with the coroner, and
right.
the
Okay.
coroner is kind of an interesting character. He said that she was going to be in a much more and be kind of a more of a Van Helsing type character in it, but she had to leave a good way into filming. So they only got to have her for a couple of scenes, but she's quite interesting character within that. She talks to him in that corner scene, but then also she comes back to him in her dreams, and he does a lot of his investigative work in his dream. And shout out to the guy who plays his commanding officer, Captain Cornelius Bayman, who is played by William Hootkins, which. If you're a Star Wars fan, you know that's Porkins, who gets blown up on that run on the Death Star. He's also in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Batman. He's also plays kind of the sleazy guy in Hardware as well. So
Hmm,
very 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 interesting
that is
actor.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's not surprising. I mean, these guys are really good, and unfortunately, he passed away. So did the other gentleman. Um, uh, that we were just talking about, but iconic. And I just was like, taking a peek and like a lot of stuff I hadn't seen before, and some other memory makers. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't want to pick on it too much, but I mean, I kind of picked this up maybe in between the lines. Some of the acting, like I think Wendy. I'm not. What do you think? Do you think that? Here's a question. Do you think that she played the hero part protagonist our protagonist portion good, or do you think that it was just a vessel for the movie? I mean, I kind of I'm curious what your thoughts are on her. Um,
I
I'm not nitpicking.
yeah.
I'm not saying she did a terrible job at all. I'm just saying, what are your thoughts?
She's she's a troubled woman, but yeah, it's actually
She plays very well in some scenes, very very well.
yeah, and I have to say, if you're ever available to listen to a Richard Stanley commentary, it's always interesting. He very fascinating man. Interesting to listen to him talk for a couple hours. But yeah, he gives a lot of insights. A lot of directors will try to gloss over things or try to leave things up to people's imaginations, but he's much more willing to give you his thoughts on what his thoughts were making the movie and what the characters were there for. And Wendy,
Right.
he said, was especially towards the end of the movie, she's more of he saw her as South Africa, this troubled this troubled person that could go either way. And there's a point where both the sergeant, police sergeant, and her husband are trying to rescue her, and those two actors that played those two roles hated each other,
Mm,
and so he kind of saw that, and it kind of played well with those characters, because here's
mm,
the black element and the white element of South Africa trying to save South Africa, but they can't save her because they're in so much conflict and hurt between anger and hurt between them, that they can't even save, and that towards the end, the husband, the white guy, he's chained to the police vehicle,
or
almost,
the yeah.
yeah, it's like the white South African is chained to the police state, and can't move because of that. Even though there is a little bit of hope because he's still struggling, but
Uh,
he's lost in the desert, with this police state,
okay,
and
okay.
so there's it is a political movie, very much so, but it's all kind of mixed in with all this mysticism and horror and this Western theme that. It is not beating you over the head with it. You could see it or not see it,
Right.
and that's the things that I love most, especially with horror and the fantasy and different things that I really like, is that it can have a political message, but I'd much rather have it obscured and more kind of universal, and you're not beating them over the head with your beliefs.
Right.
You're letting the person watching it invest in what they believe, or
Or
or their thoughts.
or right. Or you put the mystery together yourself,
Hmm.
and then it actually means something to you because you arrived on that conclusion by yourself,
Right.
which is the thing that we have. I was going to say we didn't really talk about it too much, and I'm sure we have plenty of time left to talk about it too. But that makes sense. Now I want to go now I'm gonna have to go buy the thing. I really like it. So the commentary you say is top notch overall.
Yeah.
Just as a
There's.
little side note.
Oh yeah, yeah. This especially the umbrella, and you
Big
don't
one.
have to get
Okay.
the big expensive one. They have a lesser expensive one,
That has it.
without the books, and it's just mainly just the movie. But there's three commentaries on it. There's one recorded last year when it came out, 2025. That's the one I listened to because I didn't have time to listen to them all. There
Right.
is a 2006 one that was originally done on the DVD, and I believe I listened to that when it first came out. And then there's both done by Richard Stanley, and then there's a critics commentary that's on the Umbrella one, by two different critics, maybe talking about the movie. So there's plenty of stuff to dig into. There, like I said, there's two commentaries from Richard Stanley, one from 2006 and one from 2025. I guess you listen to both and compare and contrast. Also, Simon Boswell did the soundtrack to this
I
movie.
Yeah, I was just gonna uh oh, you know what? It has Oh, anyway, sorry. I thought that was playing in the background. Anyway,
Oh no,
I was
yeah.
going to say, yeah, we didn't even touch on it, but I did want to talk about it. The Simon Boswell. I was trying to pull that up. Like that's I would say that's a good third of the movie. Like the desert actually has like a heartbeat. Like there's this. It
Mhm.
adds to the eerie ambiance, the otherworldliness. The you're in reality, but your boots are on the you're something else is going on, like
Right, and
that is around you,
mhm.
and it's almost kind of like that creepy feeling that you get, like where you're home alone or whatever, and then you kind of like you thought you heard or saw and then you look and it's like there's nothing there. Like that's kind of the
Mhm.
atmosphere that this builds very well anyway, and the sound
Yeah.
is to help with that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I was just going to add that he, when you think of South African movie, you kind of picture what the soundtrack would sound like, but
Right.
it's nothing like that. It's like a whole beast and unto itself, and that just kind of goes shows you, his one of his first soundtracks, actually his first contribution was one of the tracks on the Phenomenon soundtrack that we talked about
Okay.
during our Giallo month, just a month before. He did a track on that,
Also
and
excellent.
yeah, he said that he was in a band that Dario liked. And Dario was like, "Hey, could you do a track on my movie?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, sure." Had no idea what he was doing, and he was given the scene where the main character, she falls into this pit of grime and bones and all the stuff, and he did this really crazy kind of almost anti-sound little soundtrack to it, and you didn't have no idea what Dario would think, and Dario showed up and listened to it. He said, "Ah, perfect." So, but yeah, and then Simon went on to do Hardware and also do this movie, and like you said, I think he does a fantastic job. It's almost there's a lot of movies recently that we've been kind of going towards, and he's had his hand in a lot of the soundtracks, which is
Well,
kind
yeah, I just caught, it's so funny because I just had caught Hackers. I saw
of.
that very recently, like I've been watching a lot more. I've been letting YouTube autoplay more suggestions and being a little bit more lenient, and I'm glad I have because I've been able to kind of see some really cool things. And then you run into things like this where there's just this connective tissue here with these wonderful things like phenomena, and I'm sure
Hmm.
other these like these. There was one, Midsummer Night's Dream. Like, I mean, that's like a classic. But Hardware was
Hmm.
fun. But no, anyway, kind of pulling it back to center here for Dust Devil.
Hmm.
I the cinematography was pretty good. It's not the best in the world. I guess it depends on the quality you get. Which is it's fine. It's fine. I just think the pacing kind of was like a thing that will probably trip people up. But I think that as long as you don't land, I think it would be even worse though if you landed on and had to and saw the Miramax version first,
Right.
because then you're probably not going to be like, well, I don't want to deal with this, or I don't know what this is, and it shot its wad. So make sure you're
Oh.
checking out the right version.
Yeah, and Richard Stanley knew of the Weinstein brothers and their habit for cutting up a movie. So a lot of the shots, like early on, there's a shot where he makes love to a woman, kills her, and burns down her house. He did a lot of it in one shot, so it would be
Oh
hard to
wow.
cut if you do it in one take. A lot of times
Mm.
you can't, which is more difficult to do. But he did that, so he called him Harvey Scissorhands. It would keep Harvey from being able to cut up those scenes as much because there would be that gap there. This hard
Right.
cut that you'd have to do to excise that. So, and in that scene specifically, when he's making love to the woman, they took advantage of Robert Burke having a twin brother because he had the twin brother stand in a position where you could kind of see him in the mirror and he's smoking a cigarette, and so there's
Oh.
that little aspect. So you could see a little bit in 4K there. But yeah, there's all sorts of interesting little things going on in this movie. He also said that there's towards the end when they're out in the desert, there's a kind of a scene where the sidewinder comes up on our protagonist Wendy, and yeah, he said that they had a stunt double there because they actually had that sidewinder. It wasn't devenomed, so they had to have a stunt woman there because it gets so close it gets into her hair. So
Oh wow! Holy
that's
shit!
kind of crazy.
Jeez.
And he also said that there's two vultures that they had tamed vultures, and he said that they were very director friendly. They would do exactly what he wanted them to do, and he said any director think about using a vulture definitely because they're very good on set. Evidently, I forget their names. They had some interesting names to them, but yeah, there's the two vultures, and I like how this movie, it does, you're kind of struggling with whether or not this is a western, but you do have a kind of a showdown at the end. We won't get too much into it. It may not be high noon, but it's an interesting take on a showdown.
Uh oh.
Yep.
Uh oh. It cut out there, Tom. You said it might not be high noon, but it's.
But yeah, it may not be take place at high noon, but it's an interesting take on a showdown.
No, I agree. Well,
Western showdown.
well, it's
Maybe one of them doesn't know how to use the gun
well,
properly. But
it's funny because in if this were cut in a kind of a different way, and maybe the shots were maybe staged, this could easily be just a movie about the road.
hmm
And with that, there is obviously, a very cliche. Now, we're not going to spoil it, but with that being said, with if you had a movie, a concept, then you get to the end of the road, literally.
hmm
And in a way, it kind of does that a little bit, but well, you'll have to watch it and figure it out.
yeah,
But
there's a lot of it's open for discussion and
right,
question as to what truly happens at the end, and I kind of like that in this movie. It's a kind of a dark movie for the most part, and it doesn't lighten up by the end. There's vast questions, and obviously the protagonist doesn't make it out unscathed. We'll say that at least. And there's interesting questions on reality and what's film. Are we just characters in a film? There's an interesting scene in a kind of rundown theater, and that I was really curious about that. There's a town that they go to, a ghost town, going back to the western, and he said that there's a lot of those towns, these German towns where they would go in and they would spring up near these diamond mines, and when the diamonds would run dry, everybody would abandon town. And while it was active, they did they had they had money. They'd go through and clear out all the sand that would get blown into town. And
oh,
then when they would leave,
mm,
the sand would take over. And there's a really eerie, and we always like to talk about liminal and liminal horror. Richard, points that out during this, that scene there, where there's this liminal space where all this sand is, and when they filmed there, it was owned by these diamond mines. You can't just show up and wander around. They had to have
it's private property. Yeah.
private property, and they had a representative from the diamond mines watch them as they filmed to make sure they didn't take anything or do anything wrong with the place. But yeah, that whole scene is very eerie, and
Well,
if you're into
well, it just
liminal
adds to
horror,
the
yeah,
to the realness. Yeah.
there's a lot to kind of dig in there,
Well,
and
and this also does one other thing that I really enjoy very much in my movies, especially horror. This isn't spend a lot of time telling you what the rules are. It
Right.
drops you in on the sun blasted nightmare, and you suffer the beauty. the Because there is there is some, like, this is way ahead of time of like elevated horror, wholesale, like
Hmm.
what it gets, what it attempts and gets away with is really remarkable. Especially, and I don't think that would be true if you didn't have such a good composer, such a good eye, and the only part that kind of fell down was like what version went out where, because this one, we kind of talked about a little bit of the financials. This was like, not a cheap movie, but but Miramax just dumped it. Like they just,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
they didn't even do anything with it. They just dumped it out.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
Yeah, in which we found, as we've kind of gone over movies, that was the fate of a lot of movies with Miramax and the Weinstein brothers. If it was more cost effective to just drop it and never release it, at the end of the day, if they got that tax write off at the end, a lot of movies disappeared. Like Tears of the Black Tiger suffered that fate where it
Oh
didn't come
man,
out till much later in America
we saw it. Yeah.
because of the Weinstein's. Yeah,
I
and also I was going to mention that fantastic movie Blair Witch Trials. That movie, they were very
mm,
adamant about not letting the Weinstein brothers purchase this movie, even though they were offering more money. They actually wanted the movie to be released, and they went with a lower offer just because they knew that this company would release the movie, where that would be in question if they went with the Weinsteins. So, I guess, at the time during the '90s, everybody was all into Weinstein, especially because
right.
they had that cool sheen of Tarantino being with them, and that there was that sense of cool. If it was a Weinstein movie, it's probably kind of cool. You gotta check it out. Maybe that A24 vibe now, but with the Weinstein brothers then, and then much later, it was almost like everybody knew. But was kind of a hush secret during that time with Hollywood and all these stories that are coming out now that how horrible they were, and we were clueless as the everyday Joes.
Yeah.
um,
I was also going to draw a contrast to what, because we a unique thing when if you cover movies like we do, you have hardware, and we didn't really get into, like, we touched on it, and we don't really need to, but I will say the violence in hardware is reactive, right? So it's along the way. This is not that. This is a more the violence is never it's never brutal or gratuitous, like, just to be that. It's staged, it's ritualistic, it's 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 premeditated. Like, there's heinous malice, dark malice that goes into it. Now, that doesn't not every violent scene is like that, I'm not saying that, but for some of these things, he takes his time to lay, and just like, and this is what I love too, like, where you don't spare the details either. For you see I mean, I'm sure if it were made nowadays, it would be a little bit more, hard, a little bit more, you would obviously be able to take advantage of today's technology back then, but or maybe not, I don't know, but I was going to say, the scenes in this, you could freeze just about every other scene in this, just freeze it, and it could be a painting, or a piece of artwork itself. Just never mind the movie and what's going on in the scene or whatever. But, like, just like this is like, if this were, in other words, what I'm trying to get at is you can tell that he has, Richards, he has a painterly eye. Like, he knows how to do that, and that's a good thing. You want more directors like that, and it would be cool to, like, maybe do a catch up his
yeah.
2019 one, and just
Mhm.
compare and
Yeah.
contrast this in miniature. But anyway, I spent a lot of time there covering the fact that, like, but there's something there, like, there is that, there's great depth to what he does, even in
Yeah.
and hardware. And he's not.
Yeah.
It's not pretentious like you were saying. It's not hitting you over the head. It does have messaging, but it has the messaging that it wants you to think about and kind
Right.
of steep in,
Yeah, and
for it to really work.
maybe to expand on your sentiment, with hardware, is much more claustrophobic movie. It takes place
Oh, that's
mainly in
true.
just
It
a
is the
an
opposite.
apartment,
You're
apartment
right.
building, and in that movie he was very conscious of. And he
Hmm.
said this that to throw in all of the tropes of an action horror movie, to
Right.
jam pack it with all of the different things, because he didn't know if he was going to be able to make another movie, so he wanted to
Mm.
put everything he wanted into this movie. So yeah, it's jam packed, it's claustrophobic, it's all hitting you all at once, and I think that's to the appeal of that movie. That's why
It does
it's
work.
all, people always kind of go to that movie. Whereas this one is much more open. You got
Yeah.
those wild landscapes that are so open, and it does take its time. And maybe he didn't have the money to do all the things that he wanted, and he was kind of constricted in certain ways. There I read a few of the things in the diary, which is kind of fascinating as well. Where they renegotiated the sex scenes of what can be shown, so he's really kind of hampered, and he could only do the scene in missionary style, and he had to frame the camera a certain way to where only a little bit of the boob showed, and there's you the practical side of things kind of interfered with the artistic side. There's that scene where he chases after Wendy after she discovers maybe what's going on with the devil, and she gets scared and she runs from him. There's he's kind of running around in his boxer shorts, and yeah, he kind of wanted him, to be hanging dong, au natural, so that there's
Right.
kind of that you know, whereas with the
Extra
boxer short,
exclamation point on
yeah.
vulnerability. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. With the boxer short, it almost kind of makes it a little funnier. He said, but there's that scene where he confronts the family, and they're kind of horrified of seeing this, this devil in full
Bang.
force, and it would have been maybe a little more effective if he was naked, with that energy that he was projecting. But yeah, he was, constricted by the contracts and whatnot, and like I said, everything started disappearing. They didn't have the money at the time to shoot certain things, so it would be interesting, in a perfect world, especially with AI and whatnot. I don't know. Maybe Richard Stanley. This is very analog movie. Everything, there was no
Right.
CGI to it. There's all practical, but there is that. And the artistic people are very much against AI, but it would be kind of interesting, if he was open to it, to maybe recreate this movie with, maybe putting back in the stuff that he wanted to, but maybe he doesn't want to do that. Maybe it's much more. There's also that sense of, even if you had like $1 billion to make a movie, does that really truly make it better? Is it better if you are kind of constricted and you have to come up with um, these ways of, artistic ways of getting around the budget to make that, to push through and get this movie made. And like you said, it's more of a art house movie as opposed to a straight out action horror movie. And that was to do a lot with the budget, as opposed to not wanting to film that. He wanted to film those action scenes, but is the movie better without those, or better with them in? Who knows? It's kind of it's a fun part of one of these movies like this, is you could have those thought games of what if and what could have been. But I think, even though it is kind of a flawed movie, overall, it is. Well worth your time to invest into trying this. If you're into more indie movies, that get you to think, like I said, it doesn't hand you everything over on a plate. There's a lot of these dream logic scenes in it, that really kind of plays with you and kind of puts you in an interesting headspace.
Yeah, I think it's along those lines. It is an essential viewing, thing. It found, it's a shame that it couldn't have been made in a world where it could appreciate its, right, the director's version, not the production disaster that the Miramax butchery was. Um,
Hmm.
but it has all the elements that I love, and that's no doubt why I do like this. This is like one that is going to grow on me for sure. That begs you to like watch it, once in a great while, maybe not all the time,
Hmm.
but you can really appreciate the what was attempted and what some things didn't work out, but most things did. I think it has that
Hmm.
atmospheric horror that I like. Um, but the correct form would be, the essential viewing would be that director's cut, that version of it, and then maybe back that up with a really good commentary, like Tom had said. For what it was in the 1990s, had it hit its stride, it definitely, it was ambitious, and I think there are parts of it where the better high quality 4K version you get, you will be rewarded. And I can see that. I unfortunately I am limited, so that I have a really good 1080p version that I was able to find, and watch. Unfortunately for me, there the really good high quality version is just kind of a ephemeral ghost in and of itself. But that's what it is. But visually gorgeous, genuinely disturbing, because of the implications of that. And I will be a little bit softer on what I said about Wendy. She does do a perfectly fine job. It's just that I just think that some things were, I don't know. I can't really
Yeah.
nitpick too much. I
Uh,
mean,
yeah,
I'm not
her
that kind of a
acting could have
critic,
been a little
so
bit. Yeah, her
I
acting
mean,
could have been a little bit stronger at points, but
yeah, but
it
nothing
is
that
what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
but nothing to take you away from that. But
Hmm.
if you do the right version, you will be hooked. And this is just as everything like you were saying. I mean, this was back then. Weinstein. Like that kind of that collar of, oh, oh. The thing is true about an A24 film, which is, I don't know that I would send it out back to today, but A24 doesn't really make bad films. You might not like the film, but they never suffer for lack of quality. Anyway, for
Hmm.
the most part, that's true. There's always going to be edge cases, but
Yeah.
this one is one that you will find, you can get into, and you don't quite.
Hmm.
The less you know, I think that is better.
Hmm.
Unless you are going for like folk horror, something like that, or
Yeah.
something along those lines, then it would just be perfectly. This movie is just so good because it can slot into so many different, hub and a spoke. It could be the center, it could be out on the rim. It has a lot of connective tissue, that is just fun in and of itself.
Right. You
And
can.
yeah,
Yeah, and yeah. There's yeah. You could argue for various genres.
absolutely.
Would it tie into a giallo? Would it tie into a western? Maybe the influence are so obscure that you don't really see it until you look a little bit closer. Also, I like the fact that he's been haunted by this hitchhiker character, and it shows up. He keeps showing up in his works, like with Hardware. There's a scene at the beginning and I believe at the end where this guy goes out into the desert and in Hardware he digs up that robot skull. He's clothed in that duster and hat and there's the band. He did a lot of music videos and he did a work with the Fields of the Nephilim, and the lead singer of that likes to wear the cowboy hat and duster, and they're both into horror movies and westerns, and they have that kind of aesthetic. In fact, I think he originally wanted the singer to play the Dust Devil in Dust Devil, but he couldn't schedule wise do it. But yeah, so if you wanted to get that vibe and are into kind of a industrial goth, you might want to check out Fields of the Nephilim's earlier stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I was going
Yeah.
to say you can draw a straight line from this to A24 horror. But the difference is that, this did it first, but nobody saw it. No, nobody noticed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that punk band that no one knows about that you absolutely love and try to turn on to everybody
Right.
about. Yeah, this is sort of a yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we do the podcast is to talk about those hidden gems that needs more attention, and so we'll definitely try to promote this as much as
Absolutely.
possible. I know Richard Stanley's on Facebook, so I'll tag him in that. Maybe you'll see our lowly podcast.
Well, I hope he doesn't quit making films.
Yeah, yeah. For the longest
He's still
time,
some kind of
yeah.
way he's still involved.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, after the whole Island of Doctor Moreau, he got the stigma about him when he got fired from that, and it took him forever to be able to make another movie, which, like you said, was in the 2010s with Color Out of Time. Elijah Wood's film company. Had trusted him to do a movie. It's long overdue, and he's currently in, I think, pre-production on the Dunwich Horror, which is another H.P. Lovecraft story. So maybe he's in his, you know, H.P. Lovecraft vibe now. It looks like he's he's writing a Winnie the Pooh horror movie as well. But yeah,
That is
yeah,
hilarious. Yeah.
Dunwich, and I saw that Still Donkeys. Yeah, I'm glad that he
I
has
wonder about that.
stuff in the works. So um, looking forward to his next phase in movie making.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, this is awesome. That's all. The Dunwich thing. That's awesome. Yeah. No, I think I don't know if there's anything else we need to cover or we didn't cover. I think I got everything and I wanted. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, we're not going to be exhaustive here, but there's a lot that there's a lot there. But it successfully picks up a theme when you understand what that theme is. It's not just kind of bolted on in your face. You got to kind of figure it out, which I like. I like that aspect.
Absolutely.
Makes you a
Yeah.
good viewer.
Yeah, yeah. I think we touched upon everything. Obviously, at the end of a podcast, when we hit wrap up, I always think, oh, that one more thing I could have said, but
Yeah,
hey, if you dug our conversation, you can give us a like, a subscribe. If you like these weird westerns that we did, yeah, maybe we'll return to it. We've had a kind of a interesting success with this, so we'll see what's in our future. If you have an idea for a month of movies to cover, check that out. And also, we're big into binge worthy. For the longest time, we didn't know how to cover TV shows, get the right angle, but I think we've done pretty good with this binge worthy.
yep,
So if you're into TV, take a look, see if we cover something that you might be interested in.
absolutely. Yep. I've been Mike.
And I'm Tom. Watch out for those dust devils.